Hi, I'm Nathan from Serious Geeks, and this latest tactica is going to be on a captain in Phobos Armour for Codex Space Marines. As a general rule of thumb for my tactica series, when a unit is very similar to another unit in the Codex, such as Predator Annihilators and Destructors, which I have done in the past, I will combine them into a single entry because they pretty much cover the same ground. Going forward, this will include things like the Primaris Apothecary and the Company Ancient and the Primaris Ancient, things like that. Where this is not necessarily the case or relevant would be where the rules are substantially different and unique for a particular datasheet. One example is the captain in Phobos Armour. Now, unlike other captains, he has a very particular rule set and a very particular weapon set. We will go over that, but firstly let's stick to the usual stat line first. So, Captain in Phobos Armour, Standard, Space Marine, Primaris, Captain, stat line. Good survivability, but not amazing. 6 wounds is nice, 5 attacks is also nice, weapon skill, ballistic skill 2+, as you'd expect. The usual movement 6, strength 4, toughness 4, leadership 9, and a 3+ armor save. The 3+ armor save makes this unit fairly vulnerable, but it does have a 4+ invulnerable save from its Iron Halo. Nothing particularly out of the ordinary here. The first big change will be the weapon set that this model can have. As can be expected, most Space Marines have access to a bolt pistol. It is evident here for this captain. He also has a combat knife, which is basically a chainsword minus the AP. Not particularly great. I mean, the extra attack is nice to have, but no AP and damage 1, strength 4. It's not going to be causing many problems for many units that come attacking this model. Key weapon is the mastercrafted Instigator bolt carbine. It has a range of 30, assault 1, strength 4, minus 2 AP, and damage 3. And crucially, the abilities enable it to ignore the Lookout Sir rule. Essentially, by buying this captain, you're buying a sniper. Now, of course, damage 3 is great, minus 2 AP is nice. 1 shot, which can be move and firing, which is obviously good, but only at strength 4 is not going to break the bank. But it's a start, and it's a nice little weapon. I'll explain why it's so crucial later on. Other war gear, well, it does have a camo cloak, so a captain in Phobos Armour does get an additional +1 to its armour save and throw if it's being shot at. Functional 2+ armour save, which is quite nice. It's not game breaking at all, and you're unlikely to be shot that often anyway due to the Lookout Sir rule, but if you are targeted, at least you know you have a little bit of survivability. Close combat is probably the biggest weakness for this model, but it's going to be hanging towards the back of the table anyway, amongst all your other models, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Now, moving on to another factor that makes this such a good choice on the tabletop, he has concealed positions, which means he can essentially infiltrate and go just about anywhere on the table. He has Angels of Death, as we can expect. He has Rites of Battle. As a captain, he can assist core units, giving them a reroll 1 to hit. An Iron Halo, as I mentioned earlier, 4+ invulnerable save, and critically an Omni Scrambler, which means enemy units cannot be set up as reinforcements within 12 of this model. It's a great way of providing a bit of area denial without forking out points on a full squad of infiltrators. What I like about that is that you can use a captain that you've paid points for and you have to as an HQ choice. You can make him your warlord, etc. And then you can have cheaper troops choices or slightly different troops choices that can give him the Lookout Sir that he needs to stay alive. Whilst in response, he is able to give a 12-inch denial for any reinforcements being set up that may threaten those models. Lastly, as we know, he has the Imperium, Adeptus Astartes and Chapter keywords. It's kind of what we expect. He has infantry, character, Primaris, obviously, Phobos, obviously, and a captain, obviously, for his keywords. Now, some of the combinations that make this model very dangerous would be things like the Vanguard Warlord traits. If you give him Master Marksman, he has +1 to his damage characteristic. Now, bear in mind he has a Mastercrafted Instigator bolt carbine that is already damage 3. You're going up to damage 4 on a weapon. Okay, it's only strength 4, but if you manage to get a hit and a wound on an enemy model with this, you're going to do a lot of damage to it. You can kill entire characters in 1 hit. Even Primaris characters that often captains have an additional wound, as an example they have 6 wounds, they can only take 2 of these and they're dead. If they take 1, they're on 2 wounds remaining. This is quite critical. It also means you have a slight chance of doing a bit of damage to a vehicle. if you fire at a vehicle and you score a wounding hit on it and it fails its save, it's going to suffer 4 damage. I mean, that is really substantial for what is essentially a support character. When it comes to giving this model relics, there's not much he really needs. There's not much he can really have. He's already got a mastercrafted weapon. There are some chapter-specific relics that he can have, and they do help out here and there. It depends on what you're going for. But really, I wouldn't bother. Just save your relic slot for something else, because he doesn't really need it. He's already got a mastercrafted weapon. He's already fairly well protected, being that he is a long-range combatant, so he's not going to be getting targeted by shooting as much, doesn't perhaps need the armor save. If he's in close combat, you've got bigger problems. You just really don't have to worry about him. He's already coming pretty good at what he's got. You could give him a Ghostweave Cloak, which is a reasonable relic to make him more survivable. -1 to hit rolls against him. It also means that whenever he falls back, makes a normal move, advances, etc., he can move across models as if they weren't there, which is a fairly nice little ability, but he's only got movement of 6, so you might not find it come up that reasonably often. The Armour Indomitus, that's not potentially a bad shout. It does give him a 2+ armor save, so alongside his cloak, ranged attacks, he'd have a 1+ armor save. However, does he really need it? Probably not. He probably doesn't need that kind of survivability. So it's pretty limited. I mean, I know the Ultramarines have an example of the Soldier's Blade, which basically gives him access to a better weapon in close combat, but that's not what you want him. You don't want your captain getting stuck in necessarily like that, because there are better close combat based captains that you can take. So ultimately, I wouldn't recommend any relics on this guy. Just give him the extra Warlord trait, the Master Marksman, and go to town shooting things. And, you know, it's only a 4+ to wound the captain. If you get that captain, that Spaceman captain, you've done 4 damage to him. It's great. Now, using him on the table as your HQ slot, one of your compulsories, surround him with your intercessors or your heavy intercessors, and use him as a support structure to them. He's able to give them reroll 1s to hit. They can do their damage to infantry. He can try and snipe characters and put a little bit of extra damage on the opponent. And that's pretty much all he needs to do. He's fairly mobile in the sense that he can move 6 inches and fire to full effect. Probably don't really need to advance and shoot because he's got a range of 30, but you never know when that might come in handy. He's not a frontline character in the sense of your other captains, a Primaris captain with a relic shield, for example, or a Terminator captain, a biker captain, or a jump pack captain. Those captains are more better suited to getting stuck in, but it's always worth a go. If you've got this captain on your table, it's worth having him. He can snipe the enemy, he can cause a problem, and he's going to have a little bit of a fear effect on the opponent. The opponent is going to look at it and think, that's a 50-50, I'm suffering 4 damage on my captain. I might have to keep him behind this obscuring terrain, which could potentially be useful for you. Chapters that do great with him, well, he has got a bolter, so you never know. If you hit on a 6 as an Imperial Fist, you get an extra shot. It's always nice. Dark Angels, well, you know, they're a fairly shooty army, but then they have a lot of access to Deathwing and Ravenwing, which are doing very well in this latest edition. Ultramarines will really appreciate him because he gives you a decent sniper who can also support their infantry focus. But then he's a sniper captain. I mean, he can do a lot of help for just about any chapter. Some of the chapters that might not do great with him would be those that I want to, you know, they're potentially getting stuck in. They might have paid a lot of points for assault units, Vanguard veterans, etc. Death Company, perhaps. They might be Space Wolves. And if they're getting stuck in, they're not going to need a captain necessarily to hold the line at the back. And even if they did need a captain for doing that, that's extra points investment when they've probably spent their HQ choices on close combat support. So maybe they won't find as much use for a Phobos captain, but for most more balanced combined arms approaches, he's a great choice. So that's all there really is to say about the Primaris Phobos captain. I think he's a good choice. He has got a great sniper weapon for relatively cheap. He fits into your HQ slots quite nicely, and he's not too expensive. Remember, 95 points might seem like a big investment when you can get an entire squad for that, but you're going to have to pay for your HQ slots anyway. And even firstborn captains that come in generally a little bit cheaper than a Primaris equivalent, they usually need war gear to get them up the table and to be worthwhile. Because I mean, if you're going to foot slog, go for the more superior stat line of the Primaris if you're going to go competitive. Whereas the firstborn really excel at taking lots of different war gear and deployment options and movement options. So on that basis, he's a very cheap captain. If you're taking a biker captain, for example, you're going to go over 100 points. A Terminator captain, over 100 points. You know, if you've got Thunder Hammers, you're going to go over 100 points. If you're looking for a cheap captain to hold the line at the back, to help your heavy intercessors, to help your intercessors in general, even your tactical marines, you can give them a lot of use on the table as well, and also provide that Omni Scrambler ability to stop units from deploying too close to attack your lines and take away your board control. Go for this captain, the captain of Phobos Armour. Anyway, that's it for me on this subject. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all soon. Peace out.